the city that refused to fall. The Volga River, wide, silent, endless. On its frozen banks stood a city, broken, burning, yet alive. Stalingrad. To some, it was a name. To others, the last breath of an empire. In the summer of 1942, the German army swept across the east like a steel storm. Villages vanished, fields turned to ash. And at the edge of the Volga, they found a name they could not conquer. Hitler ordered the city erased. Stalin commanded it to stand. Two men, two gods of iron, and between them one city. Bombers turned the sky into fire, streets collapsed. Thousands died in a single hour. Yet when the dust cleared, the city still breathed. Survivors emerged from the ruins, soldiers, workers, women with rifles in their hands. They called themselves the 62nd Army. But they were more than that. They were the walls of their own fortress. Every house became a battlefield, every basement a tomb. The Germans took streets by day and lost them by night. It was no longer a war of armies, it was a war of ghosts. Not a step back, they said. Behind us, the Volga. Behind us, our land. The soldiers fought for inches, for every brick and shadow. They fought not to win, but to exist. As autumn fell, Stalingrad became a world of ruins, where life and death were the same breath. The city had not fallen, it had become eternal.
Subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like and share this video.
The siege begins. Autumn came to Stalingrad like a funeral march. The Germans entered the city, street by street, house by house. They called it Rat War. But the rats had teeth. The ruins became fortresses. The factories became strongholds. In the Red October steel plant, men fought with hammers and bayonets among molten metal and broken glass. In Pavlov's house, a handful of soldiers held off hundreds for weeks. Walls covered with bullet holes, floors soaked in blood. The Germans took it by day. The Soviets took it back by night. Snipers haunted the ruins. One name became legend. Vasily Zaitsev. His rifle spoke for the city. Each shot, a promise that Stalingrad still lived. The Volga burned beneath the bombs. Supplies came only at night, across the Black River, where boats sank before reaching the shore. But still they came. Reinforcements crossed in silence, carrying bread frozen like stone. Every man who stepped into that city knew he would not leave it. Stalin sent a single order. Not one step back. There was nowhere to go. The soldiers of the 62nd Army held on to the riverbank, sometimes only a few meters from the enemy. Between them, just smoke and death. Yet amid the fire, humanity survived. A medic wrapping a comrade's arm with her last strip of cloth. A soldier carving his mother's name into a shell casing. A priest whispering prayers into the noise of machine guns. They fought not for glory, but because the river behind them was home. As the nights grew colder, the city turned into a grave of steel. Yet through frost and ruin, one heartbeat remained. The will to endure. Stalingrad was no longer a place. It was an idea. And ideas do not die. Frozen hell. Winter came like a slow death. The Volga froze solid, a river of ice and blood. The city disappeared beneath snow and smoke. Men no longer fought for victory. They fought for warmth. Every building was a grave. Every day, another year. Soldiers burned books, furniture, even their own rifles to stay alive. Bread became dust. A single potato could buy a man's soul. The German Sixth Army still believed the city would fall, but they were bleeding, slowly, invisibly. The cold did what bullets could not. Frostbitten fingers could no longer pull triggers. Engines froze. Horses died standing. The conquerors had become prisoners of the snow. On the Soviet side, it was no better. Ammunition ran low. Soldiers wrapped themselves in torn curtains and dead men's coats. But still they stood, because retreat was not a word that existed here. In the ruins of a school, a message was carved into a wall. We are still here. That message crossed the Volga, reached Moscow, and ignited something far greater than hope. Vengeance. Deep in the steppe, new armies were forming. Fresh divisions, tanks, artillery, moving quietly through snow and smoke. The Germans didn't see them coming. They thought winter was their ally. They were wrong. On November 19, 1942, the storm broke. Operation Uranus. Two Soviet fronts struck from the north and south, slicing through the frozen lines, cutting off the German Sixth Army inside the ruins of the city they thought they had conquered. Within days, the hunters became the hunted. The steel jaws had closed. Stalingrad, once a trap, had become their tomb. For the first time, the world saw that the impossible could bleed. And from the ice, a new fire began to rise. The Counterattack and Collapse. The jaws had closed. The hunters were trapped. Inside the ruins of Stalingrad, 300,000 men found themselves surrounded by ice and fire. Hitler's orders were clear. No retreat. No surrender. He promised supplies by air, but the sky itself belonged to the storm. Planes fell from the clouds like dead birds. Food never came. Ammunition ran out. The Sixth Army began to starve. The Soviets closed in, block by block, house by house, the same way the Germans had done months before. Only now the city belonged to its defenders. The ruins that once hid German snipers now became Soviet graves of vengeance. General Vasily Chuikov commanded from the basements of the city. His voice on the radio was calm. No step back. Not even to die. By December, the Germans tried to break out. They failed. The winter grew colder. The dead froze where they fell. Entire divisions turned to statues of ice. Inside their shelters, men whispered prayers, some to God, others to home. But the world had stopped listening. On January 31, 1943, Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus, once the conqueror of Europe, surrendered to a Soviet lieutenant. He became the first German field marshal to be taken alive. I was ordered to hold Stalingrad, he said. Now, there is no Stalingrad left to hold. The battle was over. The city was gone. But so was the myth of the invincible Wehrmacht. In the ashes of Stalingrad, the tide of the war began to turn. From this frozen hell, the world would rise again. The end and the legacy. The city was silent. The smoke of war drifted away, leaving behind only ghosts and ruins. Stalingrad had not fallen. It had been reborn in ashes. Of the 300,000 men trapped inside, fewer than 100,000 were taken alive. Most would never return home. The Volga had become a grave, a monument of frozen courage. Yet, from this place of death, life found meaning again. The victory at Stalingrad changed the course of the war, and with it, the fate of the world. It showed that no army, no machine, no empire could destroy the will of a people who refused to surrender. It was not just a victory, it was proof that even in the darkest winter, there is something in man that cannot be killed. History remembers the numbers, but the city remembers the names. The ones who stood when the world collapsed, the ones who fought not for glory, but for each other. Stalingrad was more than a battle. It was a heartbeat in the history of mankind. And though the city has changed, the ground still whispers with the voices of those who would not kneel. Remember them, for in their struggle we find what it truly means to stand, when standing is impossible. This was Stalingrad. If you felt the weight of their story, hit like, share it so their voices never fade, and subscribe. For more stories the world must not forget.
Subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like and share this video.